All right. So how do we want to start? Say hi.
Hi.
Say hello. Introduce yourself.
Hi. So my name is Hayley Stell.
The one and only.
The one and only. I'll give a little bio. So I'm 29. Oh well, I'm 29. Okay.
Don't give your age away.
Oh,
Come on
sorry.
now.
I'll be 30 in June. No, I have 2 kids. I stay at home working mom. If that.
Yeah.
So I sit behind a desk a lot. I'm on my phone a lot, and I live a very sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And you're
not
also,
anymore.
she's married to a retired military member.
Yes.
You know, who, Matt, great guy, and ultimately, though, puts you through a lot of stress when you have to live in a marriage that has the dynamic of a military situation with deployments and everything else and having children.
Well, just kind of like a job that's very like go, go, go.
Yeah.
It's
moving all over the country at times. And
yeah, we travel a lot, and it's like month to month to month, and it's like you don't ever really slow down. So yeah.
And then when the military and government decides they need to put their paychecks on hold and then tell you all.
Yeah.
Which used to be a problem. Nowadays it is.
It is, yes, not a problem anymore, thank goodness.
Successful business and everything going.
I would say that between the military thing and between work and just like, I'm very goal-oriented. And with a lot of the goals and stuff I was going through last year and a lot of stress, my husband was getting out of the military. After 11 years, we were building a new house. I'd had a baby. I became very stressed. I had struggled with postpartum depression and anxiety after my first. My second wasn't as bad, but what I thought was just postpartum was I had brain fog, I had memory loss, I had slurring words. I felt drunk all the time. It was crazy. Maybe
it was the yeast in your stomach.
It was something.
I mean, brewing.
I was. I mean, honestly, yeah, I wasn't helping. I wasn't helping with my like beer drinking, which I don't do anymore. But yeah, I mean, I had some issues. Yeah. I guess I could say like so those are my biggest symptoms. I had some autoimmune type of things appear. And
you have a mom that had autoimmune problems and things like that. So you had some past history, which to me, it's really not genetic. It's more about the immune status, especially in utero and womb, that can be strongly passed on to the child. Is there a genetic component? Well, science really doesn't know for sure one way or the other with the vast majority of 90+% of autoimmune conditions. So that said, just had to throw that out there. So our goal here with this live is ultimately to be talking about her testimony, where it's brought her with her health, the steps in which were taken. You know, ultimately, I just gave her a little bit of guidance, and ultimately we were able to set her on her way. She's really taking control of her own health, and that's what ultimately we want to do through my office. In the wellness way, because one of the questions I saw already was like, where do we go for testing and things like that. Get this out there multiple times throughout these lives. Is the wellness way docs are by far the best. Some people are like, where can we go to get the testing and things like that you've already thrown out there. That we did some testing, hormonal testing, gut testing, those types of things. The reality is, it's more about, like, you could go to Mayo Clinic and they could do the tests that we do. It's whether they want to do those tests and whether they want doctors to actually interpret those tests and give patients guidance on those tests.
It's kind of like you have to beg for them too, and you don't know exactly what you're asking for, you know, and how far in depth they're going to go. And
the reality is, I mean, like the food allergy testing, you know, ultimately it's the American Academy or whatever, pediatrician or dietitians. So the AAD, whatever, ADA. I think that's it, the ADA. You know, in other countries, it's like they don't know enough about it. They don't understand the specificity to it. You know, the reality is it's an immune test. It's testing whether food proteins, which hopefully you're breaking things down before they get into the gut, but if they are exposing, it's in the IgA or IgG immune response, and that is an inflammatory component of your immune system or a component of your immune system that uses inflammation to kill things off.
Well, and I was eating things every single day that I thought were healthy. I was eating beets and almonds and flax and all sorts of stuff that is healthy, but you can be eating something every single day that your body is like,
doesn't do well
with. Yeah, and so these things that I thought were so good for me and that I was doing really good, and I had already cut dairy because I was nursing my baby, but I was just constantly inflammation. Like I was, you know, just every day. And my body couldn't keep up. And I started to have these outward symptoms of just, I had the mental and stuff like that too, but just extreme bloating, weight gain. And I was like, something is not right. And so we had talked, and I was like, well, let's kind of figure out. And so I had done, the first test we did was the food sensitivity test, blood print through the Wellness Way. And you guys, when I got my results, you should have seen my face. It was terrible. So like I said, I mentioned that
it's like, what do I eat?
I literally called him on the phone. I said, Dell, what am I supposed to eat? Because seriously, almonds, beets, cantaloupe.
Let me see this show real quick here, though. Let's show the screen. Okay, it's not red and blue at the moment, but like this top part here would be red. Okay.
Yes.
Print out a red and blue one. Have Rachel or Ashley, if you can print out a red. So the top part here, which is like, you know, a quarter of what is down here. So all of this would be red,
I love
typically.
beets, you guys.
This would be blue. So she's got all this to eat.
But listen.
She can't eat that.
Okay,
and people are like, what am I going to eat? No. I'm like, everything on the bottom half, which is like 90%.
There was stuff, I think what made it hard was like, for me, I'm a foodie. I love eating. I like to drink alcohol once in a while. Egg whites are in everything.
Yeah, it's like, how do you bake or cook anything?
I can't. Yeah. Mustards and everything, brewer's yeast, bye-bye alcohol, wheat, you know, just those oat. And like a lot of the things were like alternatives that people would use for dairy. Yeah. And so I was like, well, that sucks. But so I did that, right? We cut out that, and I started to feel a little better. But then we did stool testing. Yeah. Okay.
Let me say something on the food allergies and stuff like that. The reality is, I say this to most of my clients and patients that I work with, you know, and somebody asked about like, where could you get the testing and stuff. Like, I don't care if you're in California, you can still consult with me online, phone. We give you guidance. I'm your tour guide back to health. But the reality is, you need to be willing to give up the things that have got you into this situation, the things that have contributed to or caused your health to decline. If you're not willing to give those things up, then the reality is it's very difficult for anyone like myself to help get you back to healthy again.
Yeah. You know? It was big. It was hard, you guys. I cried about it.
Or I could just sell you 10 bottles of Albizia every single month, and I'll be really rich, and you'll still be somewhat sick, but better off with.
Truth be told, he gave me the Albizia, and I'm going to be honest, it tastes like not good. And I did all of my results were really honestly based on just being strict with my diet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you wanted to avoid having to drink something that tasted nasty. So
yeah,
like,
so I was
I'm going to be strict to my food so that I don't have to take.
It was a big like lifestyle change. It wasn't just like, for me, it was very hard. I did cry about it, but knowing, I didn't even know what my results would be. I was hoping, okay, maybe I'll be able to use my brain better. Maybe I'll be able to not be anxious.
Go through the symptoms you had from a get-go. Like, what were the issues, symptoms, again, kind of relist.
Okay, so brain fog. I literally could not, like, I was walking, it felt like I was walking a cloud all the time. I had memory loss. I couldn't remember things that I had just said or had done the last day. I had a lack of, this is going to sound really weird, but like a lack of emotions. And I think that came from the brain fog, but I was just very, I don't know, it was very strange. I had, my brain kind of felt like it was like swelling. I had extreme bloat. I had some hair loss. I had, oh my gosh, I don't know, just so many.
Yeah, you had some autoimmune
symptoms. Very autoimmune type symptoms where you could tell my body was really trying to fix something that I was just not helping.
Yeah.
And then I would say that's, I mean, even just the not being able to remember things I was trying to say was enough for me to be like, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize like they're going through life like that, and it's not normal, but it's not normal, guys.
Now it's brain fog. 20 years from now, it's the beginnings of dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever else.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, you just imagine, seriously. You imagine what would happen if someone cleaned up their diet and how much better they could use their brain. So after we cut out this stuff that I was sensitive to, that made a huge difference. Yeah. I already was feeling a little better. I didn't have like much weight loss. Okay, let me preface this. Weight loss was not my goal. Was I super comfortable with the way I looked? No, but that was a lot of that weight that I was gaining was from stress and the inflammation. But I implemented some other things with removing these items out of my diet. I started intermittent fasting here and there and whatever. But for the most part, I already started feeling better. I was already my brain was feeling a little better, but it wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
So we did the stool testing. Odd process, but highly recommend.
Yep.
Okay.
In-home
stool test.
privacy of your own home.
Yeah.
Collect your feces.
Thank God.
Put it in little vials and ship it off. FedEx, I believe it was.
It was good old FedEx. Thanks, guys. Maybe talk about what the stool test tests for.
So ultimately, you're looking at, we've actually changed lab companies now,
Oh, okay.
a little bit better,
Okay.
a little bit better inflammation markers, those types of things. But you're looking at overall microbiome. And granted, when you look at the DNA of bacteria, there are like tens of thousands of different DNA, types of bacteria, but you have them categorized. So you look at good bacteria, the commensal bacteria that should be at lower amounts, typically that are seen in the typical healthy individual.
Okay.
And then there are some that are well established to be pathogenic.
Okay.
And then there are some that could be categorized as beneficial in certain amounts,
Okay.
but then pathogenic at higher amounts, or the lack thereof. So it's looking at the healthy microbiome, what's going on there. You look at yeast growth. You're looking at the actual concentration and amount of yeast that is being put out by the gut.
Okay.
Digestive tract. What is flourishing in there? Is it growing excessively?
Okay.
And like with your case, you had over excessive growth. You had many yeast. You had a lot of yeast in there. And when you're allergic to yeast or you have an immune response to yeast and you grow yeast really well in your gut, that makes inflammation a whole lot worse. I mean, we see that in a lot of autoimmune cases where it's like, I just had a girl, we sat down last week, the last consult I had last week, she's going to be 21 in like a month, and she literally started tearing up as I was going through some of her autoimmune markers and things like that and explaining why she has the joint pain she's been having and things like that. But at 16 years old, a medical physician, I believe at Vanderbilt, maybe I'm in the wrong hospital, but that's one of the hospitals she'd seen, told her that she would need a hip replacement at 21 years of age.
Wow.
So the healthcare system that is considered to be the best healthcare system in the world, the U.S. medical system, is telling a 16-year-old, you'll need a hip replacement because there's zero we can do.
Ways to reduce
nothing we can do.
inflammation
And she's tearing up because her pain and inflammation markers and everything are so much better.
Yeah.
They've declined so much in a matter of 6 months with this girl. And now she's like, I'm going to be 21 in a month. And there's zero thought that I'm ever going to need hip replacement or joint replacements and things like that with her autoimmune conditions.
I think people underestimate how much the gut and the things you eat and the things or whatever you're consuming really, you guys, it's literally called like your second brain for a reason. It affects everything.
Yeah. So she had like autoimmune responses to yeast.
Wow.
You just had sensitivity to yeast.
Well,
but
if I would have
you think
continued
about that
on,
type of
I'm fairly certain that
you probably would have worked your way that direction.
I would have worked my way into an autoimmune. You guys, it's not
full blown. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean full blown. My mom has lupus. I mean, I was well on my way to having alopecia. Like had I continued on the route that I was in, I literally could have just. It could have gotten so much worse, and so I'm glad we caught it when we did. But so not only did we get used to overgrowth, but we had leaky gut. So talk a little about the difference between those.
So leaky gut is kind of a buzz term. The reality is a lot of people, if you have excessive inflammation, you're going to have definitely leaky gut where you're going to get whole proteins, things like that, that should have been broken down, getting into the bloodstream, causing a lot of inflammation. So typically you have some level of intestinal permeability increase during bouts of higher inflammation. Those types of things can sensitize you against the foods.
Which would explain why I was sensitive to all the things that I was eating every single day, because every time I consumed them, it was just going straight through my intestines, and essentially. And
a lot of people go through their life, like they eat these foods and they're like, they feel subpar. Like I work with people where they're like, I don't feel too bad. And these foods don't seem to make me feel bad. But yet I'm like, you're in this, you're judging that by the average day that you live.
That was me.
And so now when you eat some of these things that are on your food allergy list, you're literally like, I can really feel it. I feel brain fog. I feel inflammation in my brain, all these things. So then you are literally, your body's like, hey, I'm going to punish you real quick.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Because you just cheated on your diet again.
I mean, you guys, like every time, so when I would eat gluten before or any sort of wheat, like I felt fine, right? I'd be a little bloated in the stomach. When I have gluten now, I feel like my brain is swelling. I have memory loss, I slur my words, and I get jittery. My skin feels like it's crawling. Anxiety, like, and this isn't gonna be a symptom for everybody, but I have like anxiety, and I haven't had that, you guys, since I cut out gluten. Sometimes if I eat certain things, like I can literally, like my scalp will start to itch really, really, really bad. And if I take Albizia, it's gone in a couple hours, like, which again, results are gonna vary, but just knowing, like, now that I can feel that outward stuff, when before I was like, oh, I'm fine, like I'm just eating these things, it's not that bad. Yeah. But now that I've cut all those things out and I've reintroduced here and there, it's like crazy difference.
And what she's talking about is Albizia. It's an herb that the Wellness Way uses, the mast cell. It really works with that histamine response that if you're going to eat or come in contact with, a lot of people even have high IgE, which was one of your immune panel markers. We can use different herbs. We use turmeric more towards that direction to lower the inflammation. But Albizia, I joke around, like if you're going to eat your food allergies, you definitely need Albizia. It's kind of the antidote. It lowers that inflammatory histamine type immune response. You know,
you should just not eat them, but
yeah, exactly. I mean,
I cheat once in a while, right?
But at least we have stuff that helps our body in times of need, in times of stress, in times of toxicity, in times of exposures. You know, some people, they can't necessarily eliminate their environmental exposures to allergens that are going to activate their immune system. So it's like, you could be like allergic to pollen or allergic to ragweed or allergic to, if you're going to live in Tennessee, unless you move to like Antarctica, then you might be able to eliminate your food, or your allergies there. Yeah. So Albizia really does save a life. Now, there's other ones, Albizia or stinging nettle, but we use herbs person by person. Herbs are God's medicine, so that's what he gave us to use for the ability to help us through times of need. So,
skip the zero tech.
The other things like digestive markers. So when you're looking at food or your stool sample, you're looking at how's your body digesting fats, absorbing fats. You've got to take that into account. You've got to look at proteins degradation, protein metabolites. So it'd be on your stool. For the.
Was this my stool one?
No, your stool is.
I think someone asked too at some point about like what foods they test from the food sensitivity. Isn't it like a list of 100+ foods or something?
So here's the stool.
Oh, do I have that one?
So it measures like your secretory IgA,
I don't have that one.
Digestion absorption rates, inflammation markers, short chain fatty acids, which I think one of the questions were, what are some of the simple recipes or simple meals that you can eat? Resistant starches, which resistant starches are like green bananas, cruciferous vegetables, cooked rice, then let it cool and eat it cold, once cooked, potatoes, things like that. It literally becomes food for your intestinal bacteria. And then ultimately their fecal matter is short chain fatty acids. So instead of consuming a starch like a potato or rice that most people are like, well, that's sugar, that's starch. Yeah, even when it's hotter, it actually is easier for your body to break down and absorb as a starch. If it's cold, there's some sort of, I haven't studied far into it, but the understanding is that it actually allows for the bacteria to break it down. The bacteria then, literally, their excrement is going to be a short chain fatty acid. Okay. So they convert a starch, a sugar, into a healthy fat as an anti-inflammatory, lowers inflammation in the digestive tract, helps the intestinal lining, helps with leaky gut, those types of things in severe cases.
Interesting experience for me to cut out all of the things that were in my sensitivity and then go farther and cut out things that I needed to reduce for my leaky gut and candida type issues. I really got down to a few things that I could eat, but like the thing about all of this is it's short term, it's temporary. I gave it a good hard go, like very strictly for a few months. I think you recommend anywhere from like 3 to 6 months, because I called him and I was like, Dale, what am I gonna eat? And he's like, chill out. Like I was freaking out, and he's like, you just like, it's temporary. Like you will be able to eat these things again if you want to. If you're more strict about it,
most of them, a lot of them.
Well, yeah, there's certain things I'll never eat again, which is fine. Like I'm okay with not eating gluten. That's fine. But there's like it is temporary, and you just have to kind of go through it. Kind of sucks, whatever.
Let your body reset.
Let it reset.
Let it go through a
yeah,
healing phase.
yeah. And someone asked about resetting on here somewhere, but honestly, you guys, like just the difference in my energy, and I mean, I've probably like, it's not about aesthetics and stuff like that, but I've probably lost a good like 25 pounds or so. I don't know. I don't own a scale because it's not about how I like look. It was mostly about how I feel.
We have a scale in the office, and I hardly ever use it for
I think the last time I was here, I weighed way more than I'd ever weighed, other than when I was pregnant. And so, but I feel great. So what would be like your first step?
First step as far as overall health goes and things
like
that?
If someone's like, okay, how do you know if like you've gut issues or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, my first step, if I'm not the doctor, but I would start with a food sensitivity test.
Yeah. It's the simplest thing. Like I tell people, like the food sensitivity testing is going to be the easiest thing for somebody to apply to their own life.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And you feel a difference.
Really, I know, some docs, we charge for coaching and stuff and the results, but I tell people like I upcharge very little just for the processing and the testing and things like that. I feel it's in good faith that I'm going to be able to help people because a lot of times food allergy elimination is not everything that's involved in it.
And
to restore somebody's health.
Yeah.
So, by testing that, it's red and blue. Don't eat the red. You can have the blue. The stool testing, actually, I would say is more important because the health of the GI, the health of the gut
That's true.
makes a huge difference. Because the breakdown of those foods, if you have extremely healthy digestion, if you have good acid production, if you have good enzyme output by the pancreas, you're going to break things down to the point where they're no longer going to be allergenic to your body. It's really going to protect you against that. So, if I had to choose between one or the other for a person who has a serious health issue that they want to get under control and they need to get under control rapidly, I would say food allergy is more like, hey, that's more wellness basis. Really does help somebody in a critical situation because you stop dripping gasoline on a fire.
I
That's
use that
where
one
the
a lot
food
by me.
allergies really help. But improving gut health makes a massive difference because if they can break things down, if they can absorb things appropriately, then that builds a foundation for overall well-being, health, detoxification, everything else that comes along into the future.
I'd say they kind of go hand in hand at this point, like just knowing, because you're not going to improve your gut if you don't know what you're not supposed to eat, you know? Okay, do you want to, we did the Dutch, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
The Dutch test, yeah. So we did some hormonal markers. She had...
I was very fight or flighty.
They're hormone metabolites. So she had elevated cortisol levels, so she was stressed out, those types of things. So, using different herbs to be able to lower that stress, talking about being able to manage her stress better in her life, because the reality is, again, you can't just take an antidote and think you're going to be all better. Some people can't get away from their stressors because of their job situation or a relationship situation or kids you got to go home to every day. That, sometimes you're just like, can we just give the kid a passion flower? Elixir every day and just like help them chill out, which actually does help. Yeah.
I've set boundaries too. So for those of you that do have a stressful work life, like do yourself a favor and set boundaries, set work hours. Like it's huge. Spend time with the Lord, spend time with your family, relax, get away. And,
I have a lot of me, myself, and I dates now. When you were working. So, I mean, it came down to we look at hormone metabolites. So with her, we used a dried urine sample. That allows us to see what's coming out of the body. One of the biggest things is like the question I think somebody had of like, where can we get the testing, those types of things. Literally, you can get to these testing just about anywhere. It's ultimately who you're going to use, who's going to analyze the results of that test. Because I've seen patients that have massive signs and symptoms of hormonal imbalance, elevated estrogen, and they are like, in their hormone metabolite test, comes back with low estrogen. And I'm like, so why would that be? I think I had issues with that too, right? I think it's what's coming out of the body. So if your body is unable to detoxify estrogen, to remove estrogen, you're not excreting it. So it's going to build up in the system. So some people may have the normal ranges. Their estrogen level may be within normal ranges, but then you have to analyze the test and understand where the test is getting its findings from. and that is what is coming out of the body. So it's proper. It's basically it's proper understanding of what that test is really telling us.
Yeah.
The best thing you could possibly do is test what's going into the body, what's in the bloodstream, and what's coming out of the body. All of those things would be the most ideal situation if we talked about the best way to test.
This was extremely comprehensive. He was talking, I'm like, can I get some like Girl Scout terms here? Like, I don't know what that means. But it was, I mean.
But that's why you pay me to
I know, that's why, you guys, that's why I paid
it.
him to do it, because I was like, I need you to just dumb it down for me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, what does this mean? And it was great because I sat in his office and he sat down with me and we went through all of my testing and he's like, this is what it says. This is why it's probably happening. Like, this is what you need to do to help reduce these things. And because if I would have just done this Dutch test on my own, like ordered it to my house and I got these results, I would have been like, wait, what? Like, it would have meant nothing.
And the lab gives you some guidelines and understanding, but it doesn't. It's not as in depth and thorough.
I'm looking at it right now.
Ultimately,
You
you got to
guys.
look at it from the perspective of, okay, so that's where your hormones are, but what are upstream? What are the immune and what are the nervous system components that are going to lead to those disruptions? You can have massive neurological problems. Somebody asked about one of the number one questions I think that I read first was migraines. So what foods would you recommend for eliminating migraines? And that's where it's really asking the wrong question. Number one, you need to test what is your body okay with? What is going to cause inflammation in your body? So testing for what foods would be good for you is what you'd have to do if you're really asking what foods to eliminate to help with migraines. But the reality is the primary cause of migraines is neurogenic inflammation stemming from misalignments in the upper cervical spine. So, and that's a sign. Migraines are a sign of systemic inflammation that's going to lead to a lot more problems down the road. It increases cardiovascular risk, or like double in a woman who has a migraine once a week. So the reality is you take that seriously. Don't just cover up the symptom. And foods are not going to cause migraines. They can trigger an temporary increase in the immune response, inflammation leading to, or just inflammation from the type of food that you're eating, leading to your bucket is now overflowing and you're going into a full-blown migraine. But what are the factors underlying? Typically with migraines, it's going to be a structural abnormality and problem with the cervical spine. So you got to get that corrected by a specific upper cervical chiropractor or chiropractor that does structural correction.
Well, and that was huge for me too, is chiropractic care.
Yeah.
Like, I started coming more regularly, and I mean, just as a whole, the whole nervous system was working way better than I had been prior to.
As we're talking about testing, because I know that you were saying that some of the people were wondering about costs. So
yes.
It's for food allergy, it's $275. It's $275. And that's kind of just a flat rate fee for that. When you look at stool testing, you look at hormonal testing, those other tests, and we have many other lab testing. We have panels we run for immune system and cancer panels and different things like that. Show us tumor markers, show us ratios of your CD4, CD8 T cell responses, CBC, CMPs, your typical markers, which I always say are basically like if your house is on fire and breaking down, then yeah, you're going to see those.
I think you wanted me to send me for like a pre-diabetic thing or something.
Well, I mean, sometimes you got to look at sugar levels.
My sugar
and things
levels
like that
were high, you guys.
Like female ovarian cysts and things like that.
Yeah. I was like, am I diabetic?
The Dutch, I think, is like, I don't know the cost. My staff take care of the cost. So don't quote me on the exact costs. I didn't even get a list from them, but I think the Dutch was around $250 to, it's,
all of my
I don't think it's
I can give you a whole
300,
range of like my
something like that.
entire testing.
Stool sampling is in that 200 something range. Consulting, we do up to, I can do up to like 3 different lab works and do a consult, and it's usually around $350 for the initial consult test result read.
I would say for all of my testing and all of my results and all of that stuff, I had how many tests done? 3 or 4?
3.
3. I think it was
food, hormone, and stool.
Okay, it was less than $1,000.
Yeah.
Which $1,000, autoimmune issues and an early death.
Yeah.
It helps.
And brain fog that interrupts your ability to actually perform your job and coach people and lead people.
And anxiety and depression. And
you would have lost more than $1,000 in 1 month from losing productivity in your work.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what people need to understand.
Yeah. You pay for your health now, or you were going
to... really, where does it come from? And the reality is, like, the Dutch test, though, I had a patient who literally said, oh, that 200 and whatever, and $300 and some for your consulting is too much for me. I'm going to go see if my MD can do it. She went back to a functional med MD who she'd been seeing in the past, who didn't help her with her issues, may I say. They wanted to charge her $620 for the lab alone. The lab alone. And that's not for the follow-ups to get consulting and coaching on what to do about the irregular labs. And this patient, I'll tell you, I've had patients that have literally said, you don't need this lab. And I've had people come to me and say, I want this lab. And I'm like, listen, if you want to pay for the lab, I am completely cool with that. And you'll be paying me to coach you on what to do about the lab. But sometimes I'll look at somebody and be like, you're stressed out of your gourd and your labs are going to be off. And likely we're going to see high cortisol. So at this moment in time, with your life, where it is, upon what you've told me, as a clinician, we have to take into account what the environment the person's living in. And in that circumstance, it was a major
Well, if you live in a stressful environment and you're surrounded by a bunch of...
And until
it's not helping you. Like, eliminate that first.
Yeah. So, like, working with another lady here recently, it's like, I'm like, you got hormonal issues. I'm not going to test your hormones today because they're obviously out of whack. Why don't we lay the foundations of things that you can actually utilize that are going to make a difference in the outcomes of that lab?
Absolutely.
So why test a lab? Because there are benefits from understanding where you are in relationship to being able to say, okay, what foods and what herbs could I utilize to help me balance out and promote a better pathway in my hormonal balance?
There are other options than taking prescription medicines, you guys. Like, there's other options. I could talk about all that. I could talk that. I know you could too.
Yeah.
But
I'm usually one that says, let's back up and let's lay down some solid foundations that are going to make for overall balance in your entire system, homeostasis. You're going to lead to better hormonal balance, and then we can fine-tune the hormones and things like that downstream.
You have to know what's going on.
And she was like, I'm coming in, and I just want it all done right now.
Give it up.
Right now, I need to figure it out my life. I don't and that's what I tell people. I'm like, if you would do every single test, I would love it from the get-go, because that helps me help you the most effective and efficient quickly.
Yeah.
But I also talk to my patients and clients in a sense of saying, like, if money's like, we all have budgets. So if you've got a budget, here are the things and the stepwise, things that can help you, cost you less, help you move forward, and then we can chunk away at the things and the tests that are needed to most effectively help you.
I would say that, I wish I could show like my before photo, you guys. Like, I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten until I
did like a before and after type photos and stuff.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa. Okay, do you want to go through some of these?
Yeah, let's rapid fire some of these questions.
Okay, so we already talked about migraines. Best place to start for healthy gut?
Healthy gut. Honestly, it comes down to nutrition. I believe that testing is most appropriate depending on the individual for sure. Some of the simplest things are going to be fermented foods, all right?
Yes.
By far, fermented foods, getting out of anything packaged, processed, altered by man.
Yes.
Really, dairy. I believe, dairy for sure, unless you're looking at milking your own cow or goat,
Yes,
and
it's very
camel milk is even better.
Yes.
Yes. So, like, I've literally worked with, that's... Yeah,
we could talk about it for a long, but there are foods, you guys, that just really getting to a whole food based diet, eliminating obvious things like refined sugars.
Yeah.
Yes, we can talk about that all day.
And gut health comes down to many different factors, but I would start, everybody start chamomile tea. As long as you're not allergic to it, start chamomile tea. It helps promote mucosal membrane health. Teas are less efficient at building a strong mucosal membrane, but they are something simple. Fermented foods, depending on yeast and things like that, kombucha can be very good, but then it can be high in sugar.
I had to avoid that.
And yeast and overgrowth of yeast in that situation would make you worse. So I can't give you blanket statements. That's the problem without having appropriate testing and discussion. Because some people's gut issues are coming from, they have mold exposure. So the reality is, you got to get out of the environment and clean the environment. You got to fix that because that just destroys your gut.
I have a friend that was developing an autoimmune issue because she was living in mold. No other reason. And she had to move. Unless she wanted to end up with that. Okay. What is something that you can purchase at your local store to help boost your immune system?
I would say eating more mushrooms. Again, staying out of the aisles that have anything packaged or processed or anything like that, and just staying completely in the produce area.
Yeah. You guys, your diet makes such a big difference. I think people underestimate what you put in your body makes a difference.
It's more about what not to eat for gut health than it is about necessarily what is the golden ticket to. I've got a golden ticket. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so boosting immune system, honestly, you guys just taking care of yourself.
And mushrooms, I say that because mushrooms have some of the strongest, improves IgA mucosal barrier. Reishi is not an edible, that won't be at the store.
Well, okay, if we talk like even just like tinctures, like reishi, chaga.
Yep. So they have to be dual extracted for best medicinal purposes because you cannot break down very well the polysaccharides that are in the medicinal mushrooms very well. These are more woody mushrooms that are medicinal mushrooms, chaga and reishi, turkey tail, those types of things. But maitake, shiitake, lion's mane, very rarely ever in the store, but there are some delicate edible mushrooms. Even white button mushrooms do have a beneficial effect. And I got the question, and I just want to throw it out there on this live, that, yes, they're under the phylum kingdom or whatever it is, I forget, is it the kingdom fungi, but they're not a mold. They're not mold. So I've heard a lot of people be like, I'm told not to because they're a fungus. And I'm like, okay, so you're allergic to a plant, right? Ragweed? Okay, never eat a plant again because that's a plant as well.
Yeah, that makes
sense. So mold, so it's like the plant kingdom, you have the fungi kingdom, and mold and mushrooms are in that kingdom. They're not the same, folks. So if anybody's ever said, oh, you're allergic to mold, or, it's a fungus, so don't eat it, I would be like, so don't eat plants, because there are some really poisonous plants that could kill you instantly.
Yeah.
But there's some really cool mushrooms that could definitely kill you instantly as well, and other ones can take you.
That's why it's important to be educated. What are some of the worst inflammatory foods that we think are healthy? Dairy.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah, dairy promoted by mainstream medicine, soy products that are especially GMO, those types of things. I would say your whole wheat, whole grain, all that type of stuff. Even some gluten-free foods are extremely inflammatory by their insulin response, their sugar responses, those types of things.
Yeah.
So really, it comes down to gluten-free on everything. We always laugh like, these tomatoes are gluten-free. You're like,
well, so I mean,
it's a buzzword, and now it's like a marketing term. Well, it's gluten-free, so it's got to be healthy. No, it's not.
I mean, you go into nightshades and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it depends on the person.
Google nightshades, you guys. Okay, how do you know if you have bad gut health?
If you're sick.
Yeah.
It comes down if you're sick. If you're sick, you need to work on your gut.
And we're not talking common cold sick, y'all.
Because Hippocrates said, look well to the spine for the cause and prevention of all disease, and he said, all disease begins in the gut. So big sayings that I think he had knowledge into what was causing problems with people's health.
Oh, I just thought
nervous
another
system,
symptom I had.
and immune and gut. And gut health, disease begins there. It doesn't necessarily is not all caused there. Okay? So understanding that, gut health is a foundational piece of the puzzle. If you do not have good gut health, it leads downstream to tons of other problems. Liver congestion, insulin problems or sugar problems, absorption problems, nutrient deficiencies, breakdown and infections within the gut, skin problems from the inflammation coming out. And skin problems can be liver or gut usually. The eczema and things, and that was one of the questions I'm kind of answering right now, is that gut inflammation oftentimes can be shown in skin inflammation. Migraine headaches can be a sign of inflammation in the gut as well. Brain fog, like you were saying.
One of the things
joint
I had
pain.
Was when I was nursing my daughter, who also was sensitive to dairy, probably through me. Both of my kids ended up having a skin discoloration, which was a fungus on like a fungus candida growth on the skin caused by me when I was pregnant with them.
I literally just talked with the mom yesterday, brought her infant in, and she's like, I did a food allergy test on him, and it came back with like barely anything, and we don't really, and I'm like, and I'm like, is he nursing? So I'm like, he's not eating any of these foods. Don't do a food allergy test on an infant.
Oh, I had done one.
And this is, I've been working with the mom, so it's like, but she went to get these tests, a test somewhere else real quick, in which, she felt bad. I'm like, but you are this baby's immune system.
Yeah.
So don't test the baby, test you.
Yeah.
Because you are
yeah.
the one providing with either the inflammatory or the anti-inflammatory immune cells.
Had I not been
That is
sensitive
what
to
you
dairy,
were
I'm
doing.
pretty certain my kids, I mean, Indy probably wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
You know, or I mean, maybe she would have, but
Yeah.
it just knowing the things that like I was eating were affecting her, like, and causing her to have a weak immune system, that alone made me obviously want to help
Yeah.
myself too.
And some people will say don't because your immune system does change while you're pregnant and while you're nursing. Some people say don't test well. If it's about you, testing while nursing or while
It was
pregnant
definitely more about me, but that helped.
can be like, yeah, it's not going to give us the greatest read while you're pregnant or while because it's going to change and alter your immune
I'll be
system,
doing
which
all
is
my
to
testing
protect
again
baby.
when I'm done.
But the reality is, I tell people like, I want to know what's triggering inflammation in my wife while she's pregnant because I want baby as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
And with Ren, I was like looking at Anna and baby's having digestive issues, and I'm like, there's zero misalignments in this kid's spine. I'm like, we have to get food allergies, and we tested my wife. She eliminated her food allergies, and again, it was dairy, and she was addicted to lattes and things like that. You know, we don't live perfect lives. You know,
Yeah,
me and my wife, we do our best in this society, and I always say that I'm not going to stress over it to the point where that causes greater disease than the allergy would itself.
That was, he told me that when I was stressing about my food.
Yeah.
He's like, you're literally not helping yourself. You're going to stress about what you're eating. Chill out. Like,
And I said, if it stresses you this much, then we need to say, what are the things you just stress out hardcore about that you stress out because you have to eliminate? And I'm like, you could eat those things again if you're stressing out to the degree you are.
eliminating margaritas is really hard, you guys.
Yeah, so, and that really is a stress reliever, right?
Okay, can gut inflammation cause rosacea?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a marker of it's just a sign of inflammation.
Skin,
especially.
like acne, you guys, like my skin cleared up a lot when I started removing things I wasn't supposed to eat. Like there's, eczema.
You said that, and so
Yeah.
there's that other question. Best
Yeah.
test, blood work, stool sample for acne, for sensitivities. Like I have a woman that
Yeah.
like did all the drugs, did all it, like all the
like
drugs, like
Accutane? Oh my
hardcore.
God.
Yeah, like all these things.
Girl.
Acne just didn't, and literally I'm like, we need to start working on your liver. We did a stool sample, food allergy, and literally she hits it. And
When I eat dairy,
hits
you
the
guys,
ground
I
running.
break out.
And literally, she's like, within 2 weeks, her acne is almost completely gone.
Oh my gosh. When I eat dairy and things and sugar, it comes
Acne
back.
is usually liver to me more than anything
Okay.
else.
Well, I think okay. What things should be removed for a successful health endeavor? Kind of talked about that. I mean, it depends on your testing.
It depends on the individual. Like there is literally people who get healthy, and it comes back to microbiome makeup, your physiology, your stress, all these things. But there are people who reverse their autoimmune conditions on carnivore diets, and there are people
it
who
literally depends.
remove their autoimmune conditions on plant-based diets.
I
It's
want a
person by
little.
person. There is not a silver bullet, golden ticket.
Yeah.
It's going to cure everybody and anything.
What are the essentials to have in home and kitchen for success?
In kitchen,
So just, I would say like things that are helpful to have around. I mean, honestly, if you just eat the things you're supposed to eat, not eat, like,
yeah.
I mean, there's
It
herbs
comes-
and stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, we have an entire huge drawer of
if
all
you want
kinds
to
of
cheat,
herbs.
these are super helpful.
For the enzymes, or which
Yeah.
one is it? Yeah, you're gonna
These
cheat.
are my
You
friend.
know something's gonna cause you bloating. Make sure you take extra enzymes, ACV,
Yeah.
apple cider vinegar, and you try and break it down before it hits your gut and causes the
tastes good
bloating
too,
and
y'all.
inflammation. But my
Oh.
kids literally like, can I have a vitamin? I'm like, that is before we eat, and no, you don't need it.
Oh, my kids
Stop.
are addicted to the vitamin D.
The vitamin D, the
They
chocolate.
taste like chocolate, you guys.
fruit.
It's hard.
So good. Ion biome
Talk about
helps
this.
with gut inflammation, leaky gut, intestinal permeability problems. It's basically a carbon molecule that's found in peat and healthy carbon-rich soil that is not.
Drink on an empty stomach.
Yeah, it's just.
Tastes like, it doesn't really taste like anything. It
And the
just
reality
looks
is, I tell
gross.
people like, if we were consuming foods from soils that have a diversity of plant life, that are well mulched, that have
don't have,
mushrooms growing in them, that have all the things that healthy soil need, the bacteria, the funguses, those things that produce these things that help with gut health and lower inflammation. I mean, literally this study was 2007, but I came across it here recently talking about how soil-based probiotics could be like better than Prozac, and that whether it even be getting it in your body through a cut or getting it through consumption of those soil-based probiotics and molecules and carbon-based molecules, that helps. So I tell people, like, you should at least be, even if it's a backyard, front flower garden, back flower garden, something, have some sort of root vegetable that you're going to go out there and you're going to pull and you're going to eat just by dusting. Yeah. Don't use chemicals or anything like that, but dust it off, well mulched, and dust it off and consume it.
Literally,
like, that's it.
Leave your
dirt is good for you.
Leave your Roundup at Lowe's, okay?
Don't freak out.
Yeah. Okay.
The kitchen, I was thinking, list off a bunch of cast iron skillets.
Yeah,
for
good for
sure,
iron.
or non-toxic cooking ware, those types of things. Non-toxic cleaners, because you're going to consume and you're going to get exposed to sea salts. We use Celtic sea salt. Himalayan sea salt's good. Really just organic if you can. Dirty Dozen, Clean 15.
Yes.
That refrigerator full of fruits for your kiddos to eat anytime they want. We have tons of frozen berries in our refrigerator from Costco, organic or wild. That's really where it comes down to, is the cooking,
less frozen,
the cleaning,
less packaged,
materials, and
more fresh
nuts and seeds and healthy stuff in the pantry.
Okay, what kind of providers provide the necessary tests?
The Wellness Way docs.
I would say
basically.
Skip all of them and come here.
And it's like, again, the tests can be bought online directly from the lab sometimes, but again, Wellness Way contracts with them, and the collective buying power of multiple doctors across the U.S. enables us to buy down the cost of the Dutch from $600 down to like $200.
I looked at it in line before I did it here, you guys, and I was like, $600?
So what most people would pay just straight away for the lab, pay the lab alone, we basically get you under that for our consulting and coaching on what to do about the results or with the results, plus the lab work.
Because you could get results and not know what the heck you're doing either. Like, so you're not just, if you are working with a Wellness Way doctor, which you can find on the website, I'm sure.
Wellnessway.com or my office. I think Ashley's going to do the, hey, you can text our phone number, thewilddoc.com, and then you can literally be like, there's a tab that's clinic, and you can go and schedule an online consultation.
You don't have to be local.
Nope.
Yep. And so, okay, so say you're doing a blood test, you get a kit, right, from here, and you guys would mail it, yeah?
We can mail the kits.
Okay, and then you'd go to what, any lab test now?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay, that's
where
I went.
Any blood draw locations, some people have to go to the health department, some people have to go to
it was like $15 or something.
The hospital, but then they'll charge you for a blood draw fee. So you need somebody who's trained in venipuncture, they draw the blood.
What test should we ask for? I mean, kind of totally depending on what your issue is.
You need, so it's not always, that's the thing, is it ultimately depends on what you're dealing with and where your health is. It's not about what you ask for. You need somebody to guide you and help you with what are the appropriate tests to start figuring out why you're in the situation you are in. Not just, hey, I have a ton of symptoms of thyroid problems, I need my thyroid checked. But then you get the thyroid results back. What does that even mean, and then you're like, yeah, you have a thyroid problem.
Duh.
And, and then they're like, okay, here's a medication, or here's Nature Thyroid, the way around, well, I don't do drugs, but I take Nature Thyroid. Well, it's an immune problem, it's an absorption and a conversion issue. What's going on that is causing the thyroid issue? And many times, the majority of the time, a thyroid issue is not a thyroid issue. It's an immune issue. So you have to dive into the immune components. Is it a viral infection? Is it a chronic Epstein-Barr viral infection? Is it a liver problem? Is it going to be
just got diagnosed with that.
Lyme's disease? Yeah. Is it,
both.
Is it a gut issue that's triggering the immune system? How can you drive down the immune triggers that lead to the thyroid issue?
Okay, we already talked about acne one. How do you know it's bad for your body? How do you know it's bad for your body? What signs should I be looking for?
The foods, or which one?
Nah, I'm on third down. So it says, how do you know
what's bad for your body?
Well, and what signs should be, you guys, if you're not feeling 100% healthy and perfect all the time,
list off your symptoms again.
What are your symptoms?
What I mean? Inflammation, any sign of inflammation, skin inflammation, age spots, mental fatigue, mental
anxiety,
fog,
depression,
bloating, cramping.
Joint pain, all the things. Like if you eat a certain food and you get flushed in the face and you get really itchy, like that,
And sometimes it's like you're just tired the next day and look back at what you ate. Maybe the day prior, or maybe
have a hard time getting out
several
of bed
days prior.
in the morning.
Because some of these things do not cause initial, like that's what the food sensitivities are nice, because ultimately that testing leads to something that can cause problems within days to possibly a week later, that you feel the symptoms and results of that. Versus like what medicine and medical physicians test for and hospitals test for, the IgE, that's the inflammatory anaphylactic responses. Those responses, like the movie Hitch where he blows up like a balloon from exposure. So those are nice to know, but those aren't the ones you're looking for when you're trying to dive into what are the causes of the chronic health problems people are dealing with.
Has it been over an hour, Ashley? That might. Oh, yeah, okay. I'm going to skip the last two because we kind of already covered all that.
Like 100 people on. That's awesome.
Wow. What are simple meals to eat that are good for your gut? So also kind of talked about that.
Yeah, the ferments, resistant starches, okra, mucilaginous type foods for cooling of the stomach, chamomile teas, mushrooms, bone broths, vegetable
Bone broth,
broths,
you guys.
those type of things. And somebody asked about that, like if a vegan, do they get the same benefits from vegetable broth versus bone broth? Depends on the individual, and there are vegans that do really good and they're really healthy. A lot of times you need to supplement. A lot of times you need to be grazing off of like wild-picked, consumed, soil-based probiotic exposure, those types of things to be a really good vegan. That's why many vegans have to supplement with B vitamins, because they don't get enough through their natural diet, through the conversion that is going to take place through the proper bacterial balance in the digestive tract. The vegetable broth, yes, very, very good. Obviously, use a lot of root vegetables, a lot of mineral-rich vegetables.
Probably make your own.
It depends. It depends on the individual. I like mushroom broths because they have a benefit towards the mucosal membrane health of the digestive tract more than a lot of other things. And I would use like mucilaginous type herbs in your bone broths, or in your, your vegetable broths if you're a vegan.
Okay, let's see. What is a good way to just start over?
I know that was a tough one because it sounds like somebody's kind of like, I've been through a lot. This is where I'm at.
Start with what we already talked about, getting tested.
It comes down to that situation. You need, what I would say is before you even start over, look at what you've done, look at what has helped you. Like I tell patients, sometimes my first consult comes down to like, what have you done? And we sit there and take an hour or plus just to lay out what they've been through in their life. What is their story, their timeline, what testing has been done, what were the doctor's recommendations, and what did they do? What did they find online, and what did they try?
Where have you lived? What have you been exposed to?
Exactly. It's just, talking about that, that's where you need to start and where everybody should start. But some people have been run through the mill. I literally had somebody come to me and they're like, I'm like, so how'd you hear about me and why are you here with their situation? And they're like, you're basically my last resort.
Oh.
And I'm like,
okay,
thanks for the pressure. I'm like,
I'm here to help.
The reality is, I'm like, listen, but it was simple. Like once I started talking to these, a lot of times I talk to these people, and I'm like, so basically there's really nothing's been done to help you. Like everybody's been searching to try and figure out what is wrong with you and how to label you.
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, you know what, forget about the label. Let's figure out what are things that are weighing heavily on your health, on your function. What is causing the stress? What is causing you not to function and be as healthy as you could be? Let's look for what we could do right for you rather than just look for what is wrong with you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Does that make sense? A lot of doctors don't think that way.
Yeah. When this one finishes, Ashley, can you save it? Like in the top? Yeah. Okay, cool. How do I know if I'm sensitive to dairy? Oh, I want to say something so inappropriate right now.
Number one, if it's conventionally grown, eliminate,
honestly, are you chosen one or no? Because
that, or eliminate it, bring it back in. The elimination type techniques do very, very effectively. Yeah. Testing is just nice because you know the things that you're likely really going to respond negatively to. You eliminate those, and then like you said, when you do add one or two of the things back in that are on your list, and some things you may be able to add back in, and it's like your body is no longer sensitized against. So then now you don't have that prolonged inflammatory immune response, so you can get back to some of the foods you ate in the past.
The first time I ever ate ice cream after I had cut it out after having my son, you guys, like, no,
Yeah.
Like extreme cramping. It was not okay.
You're like, yeah, the pleasure of that eating the ice cream wasn't as good.
No, it was like not
good enough
yeah,
for the
no.
pain I have to endure.
No, not good. Food sensitivities and eczema. Eczema is an outward symptom of an inward issue. Someone with no gallbladder, what's one thing they can do to help? Major side effects.
Gallbladder complex. Wellness Way gallbladder complex. Get that from us. 50. What is our code to get this herbs and supplements from Wellness Way? 5321 or something like that.
I want to make sure.
5231.
5231.
We'll come back.
5231 if you go to the Wellness Way store to get the gallbladder complex, but you need to be supplementing with that. And I did want to say this, it is the stupidest thing ever to remove organs from your body, all right? In an emergency situation and you're dying, thank God for that, but the reality is this, if you're having gallbladder pain, you're having stones even, work to improve the function, dissolve the stones, restore the function because you need that gallbladder. No one would go in and say like, okay, I've got kidney stones, so let's just remove your kidneys because that's where the stones are forming.
Yeah.
Oh, your stones are forming in your gallbladder,
But
let's
why are they
remove your
forming?
gallbladder. Stupid, all right?
Can you explain how the food sensitivity test works for those not living in Clarksville? So, what I'm talking about too. But.
Food sensitivity, we mail you the kit. You contact our office, 931-591-2010, thewilddoc.com, D-O-C, not D-R, so wilddoc.com, thewilddoc.com, the real.
The one doc. And only Wild Doc.
I feel bad after I just said that. I was thinking about it. I'm like, hopefully I didn't offend the person about the gallbladder issue, but I'm not harping on you. You were just,
they were.
It can be a spinal misalignment. Like I have studies in this journal Lancet in like 19 somewhere, 1920 something, like literally talked about women having their ovaries removed, their hysterectomy, having their gallbladder removed, people having their intestines cut out, their appendix cut out, their spleen cut out, all these things. Literally. And then the doctors, and these are MDs, these were not even chiropractors. These were just woke MDs, all right?
Whoa, y'all.
And literally publishing in the Lancet, doing lines on these spines of these women. And being like, you see the curvature? The apex of the curve is right there. This is where the nerve goes to their gallbladder. They had their gallbladder removed. We corrected their spines, and their gallbladder symptoms and problems and GI problems completely went away, even though the surgery was done and didn't help them. So
someone asked me about celery juice. So,
I was like, is that a joke?
No. So I talk a lot about consuming celery juice. If you've looked into the medical medium, he's got a lot of great information. But I drink celery juice first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. I wait 30 minutes, and then I actually intermittent fast till 12. I break my fast with a bone broth, and then I go and eat throughout my day until about 8 o'clock. So it's combining celery juice with intermittent fasting. What I've noticed when I drink celery juice is energy, clear skin, less bloating, things like that. So it's just something that I've added to my routine. It tastes like
the
crap,
sodium, mineral, and electrolyte makeup of celery is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
you could probably do the same with cucumber too. Cucumber juice would be very similar to that as well.
It's something that's really helped me. I juice my own. I get this question a lot. Do you juice your own? Yes, I have an Omega juicer. I juice it every single morning. It has to be organic celery, you guys. You don't want to be eating celery that's filled with pesticides and stuff like that.
I think that's one of the dirty dozen is celery.
Yeah. It's like the top. It's so bad. So organic, very important. Costco has the best kind. Best things to do at home to help you figure out your digestion problems. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to say, and they're already dairy-free.
Yeah.
Eliminating certain things.
Eliminate the big ones. I say, roughly I think they estimated around 30% of the population has an allergy to some level to eggs. So eliminate eggs, dairy, gluten in many different grains, or at least ferment your grains or soak your grains, those things that have lectins that inhibit proper absorption or create inflammation, and then like all your GMO stuff, all your like your soy, your GMO
Don't drink
corns
soy milk,
and grains and different.
Which brand of bone broth?
Bexel broth, Bexel. It's actually a home-based business, and it's super nice. Oh, I should have brought some. She actually makes it into a bouillon, so you can mix it with hot water, 8 ounces of water, and it's good to go. Has all the same benefits. I've tried a lot of different bone broths. I've tried the kind that are already liquid. I don't like them. I don't prefer the taste. And you can then use filtered water to make your own. And you can take it with you wherever you go. So it's Bexel Broth, Bexel, on Instagram.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I like those companies and stuff like that.
She's a holistic
simple ones
nutritional
are like bulletproof.
Coach.
You know, the Dr. Axe is my cousin, the Ancient Nutrition.
I have that one as well.
You know, those are some good bone broths. I mean, we make ours out of wild turkey.
I don't have time for that.
Not the liquor.
I don't have time for that. But
wild turkey
it's
usually,
good.
And deer bones. Like that's.
So if you have time, do that.
So
you don't have time.
Like we really don't have many. I mean, I think we have it in there, and it usually lasts us like a year because we make a lot of our own. And I think that's really. I think there's healing in going out in nature, spending time in the garden, spending time, you know, processing these things and doing things yourself. And some people just don't have that time because of their lifestyle and situation. If you don't have that time, stress is probably a factor in why you're unhealthy.
I know where I'm going. They live 5 minutes down the road, and I'm going to be coming to get some bone broth. So. Okay.
We'll name that. We'll label that bone broth June. No, I'm kidding. You didn't catch that, did you?
Stop. No, it would be Johnny. Okay.
She has a cow.
I do have a cow. She's cute. Are there some must avoid at all costs foods?
All cost foods. Basically, kind of for most people without testing, those 4 that I just said. All GMOs, you know. And the reality is I'm not going to freak out. Do me and my kids on travel and my family sometimes have pizza that is probably going to be a GMO sprayed grain? Yes. Where our health is allows us to be able to roll with that punch. That is not going to hit us like it hits some other people. It hits my wife probably more than anybody else. But again, she's got breast implant illness and different things like that we're going to fix in the near future once she's done nursing. But the reality is those would be the big 4. You know, so I'm not like the person where if you're living, you got to somewhat live life and enjoy life and those things. And if you're going to stress out of your gourd, and if there's a level of joy and pleasure and time with the family and enjoyment of that food for once every blue moon. Yeah. Absolutely. It's not going to kill you.
You got to live your life too, you know. Just try to get on track first. How does this is a good one. How does gut health relate to mental health? Actually, okay, there's 2. So how gut health can relate to mental health, and the last question was, how does gut health and inflammation correlate with mental health and depression?
They are seeing mental health as more of an immune problem than and neurotransmitters are going to be determined by inflammation, immune, and nervous system stress. So when you look at those components, and immune being one of the biggest, they've literally now, some doctors and scientists are saying like, mental health, depression, anxiety is more of like an infectious disease because there is such a strong immune component that drives the altered state of your neurotransmitters. So that being said, insane. You have to look at what is the inflammatory immune triggers or the neurological stress that is going to be causing the mental state. Okay, gut health, the gut in the brain, you know, nerve fibers from the vagus nerve. If you're going to just channel stress and inflammation into the brain when your gut is inflamed.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I mean, you guys, the difference that I feel I had a really unhealthy diet when I was pregnant with my son, and I don't feel like that there is any sort of coincidence that I struggled so badly with postpartum depression. I also gained a ton of weight after him, or with him, and I had the DTaP or TDAP or whatever while I was pregnant with him, also bad.
Immune.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Massive immune trigger. You already had liver problems. You already had gut issues, those things. And then you go through a time period where your body has to literally go back through a massive chemical, physiological change, physical and chemical change, basically, hormonal change. And if your liver doesn't function properly, if you have inflammation in your digestive tract, if your spine is out of alignment, all those factors don't allow you to go back into it, and that inflammation in your entire system, that immune response. And you're going through changes massively in the immune status and state from pregnancy to breastfeeding to then no longer breastfeeding and getting to be on your own again. That is massive immune transitions.
Balancing my body after
And if
having my
your body
son was a
can't do it-
nightmare. My entire gut flora was just destroyed. And I, again, didn't have that same issue after my daughter. And I know every pregnancy is different, but just the difference in the things I ate and did while I was pregnant with Indy it was immensely different. And so I don't think that there was any coincidence there that why I struggled with it. And
Yeah.
so it's helped me so much. I literally feel like a different person.
Yeah.
I do, truthfully.
And
Okay.
you can see it in kids. You change their nutrition, you change their gut health.
Indy is so
and
much healthier.
Their ADHD, their aggressive tendencies, their frustration type status completely changes.
Yeah. And Lennon was, he's a healthy kid. He doesn't have any of those long-term issues and things like that, but just Indy compared to Lennon, even just capturing or getting the common cold, he would get it more than she would, or he would get it and she wouldn't. And just because of my gut and him and having him, so. Okay, we talked about how much the food sensitivity test is. Thoughts on a good probiotic?
Good probiotic. Here's my Wellness Way has one. We have the powder, and it winds up being 100 to 200 billion.
It's a lot. I have that
So
one.
it's probably the best, and the dosage for the price. But I am going to say, I hesitate in saying, because everybody thinks probiotic. Everybody needs everybody. I think if you were to do apple cider vinegar and do fermented foods, start there. If you've got SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, you don't have enough acid production in your digestive tract, and that's why you have SIBO, why you have yeast overgrowth. Now, yeast is a little bit different there, but the reality is, if you have overgrowths, you could cause a problem or further perpetuate the health decline with a probiotic. So
yeah, absolutely.
Probiotics aren't necessarily like this.
Avoid
like everybody
antibiotics,
needs
though?
to take it. Avoid antibiotics for sure, because it kills good and bad, and usually doesn't kill the really bad, and usually the really bad then get the opportunity to spring up in overgrowth after antibiotics. I see that a lot with,
And it takes so long to restore your gut after taking antibiotics, which, again, huge issue after having my son. Little shout out though, if you are local to Clarksville area and you're looking for really good fermented food, Ferment Your Life is a great business. She'll deliver it right to your house.
Yep,
And
that's what my family uses.
Yeah, we eat it all the time. It's really good. She's got really great salsa. Fermented garlic, just like adding those things back in, like fresh garlic, not minced from a thing, will make a big difference. Just adding that, crush it yourself, put it in your food.
Grow it yourself.
You can grow yourself, whatever. Do that
pop
too.
Pop clove in your mouth, and you get soil-based probiotics and garlic all in one.
Is there anything on there?
Did you see any major questions or anything like that?
I saw it was on Facebook and Instagram. Can you tell the difference between like getting your finger pricked for the food sensitivity versus getting your blood drawn?
I had blood drawn. They needed a lot of blood, you guys.
So blood draw, the reality is the science within that realm is still not as clear as we would love it to be. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Because I've said, hey, if all you can afford is 75 and you want to do the hair analysis, do it. Now, it may be what you were sensitive in the past, not presently sensitive to. The finger prick, you may be able to see what your body is responding to, but you're not going to be able to test it against those things. A blood draw is able actually to test those food proteins against your blood and watch what happens. So it's just the time and place and money sometimes can dictate it. Sometimes it's like, hey.
Save up for it, you guys. It's seriously worth it.
Yeah. I don't think the science really clearly even tells us exactly the major differences between all of them.
Yeah.
It's not like they've all been put to the test, and then you have a group of people here that did the prick test. You have a group of people here that did the hair analysis. You have a group of people here that did the blood draw. And then you said, okay, now each group, eliminate them, and then see who gets healthier.
Yeah.
So we really don't have the results that would be amazing to have to say which test is best. But with what we can see the immune system in the body respond, the blood your immune cells respond to, I love the blood test.
Okay.
Question for Hayley.
Oh.
What are breakfast ideas you do for your children? I have a 3-year-old. I am in the process of trying to change out all of our foods to whole foods.
Okay. So fresh fruit. We use organic berries. We mostly focus on berries just because they're a little less in sugar, like whatever, you know what I'm saying. We try to limit our egg consumption because it is a allergen for a lot of people. My kids aren't, as far as I'm aware, super allergic to them, but we'll do like hard-boiled eggs, or they really like hummus, which is a weird breakfast item for a lot of people, but also, what's the word I'm looking for? Grain-free granola, organic. Everything we eat is pretty much organic at this point, just because I know I don't want to add those extra chemicals and stuff, unless I go out for dinner or whatever, but we do a lot of...
You still don't want to, but you have to.
Yeah.
To enjoy the meal.
I know.
Sometimes,
once in a while, they'll get like an almond yogurt, also high in sugar. Try to avoid that. But I would say that's the majority of what they eat.
Mine are like apples and frozen berries.
Yeah, we do a lot of frozen blueberries, you guys.
A lot of
Holy
bananas,
crap.
A lot of frozen to see if you have an issue on that sensitivity test? No, you do not.
No.
I literally have people who are basically vegetarian, vegan, and they're allergic to shellfish.
Yeah,
It
oh my
could
gosh,
be
you guys.
the vaccines you got as a childhood, because they do have proteins from shellfish in, I believe it was the MMR
I
vaccine.
was allergic to lobster.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
eat
tests
lobster.
that people are like, I've never ate this. How can I be
Tuna? I
sensitized
hate
to
tuna.
it? Some things are through different types of exposures. And
Yeah.
again, it is what your body is responding to, and it may be the molecular structure of the protein and somehow you're sensitized to it outside of just being exposed to the actual food.
Yeah.
So,
And it'll tell you, when you get this test done, it'll give you like a 1 through 4 number, and 4 would be like your highest, most sensitive item, and then it'll go down to 1. Casein was my top. But
somebody said, I'm 64, can I still be helped? What if you're older? Yes,
ooh,
I
you want
literally
to be
just
helped.
I think these patients were just 70 plus years old.
You guys, it's never
A
too
husband
late
and
to like
wife,
get on a
literally
good
just
health track.
And
I'm 30.
they're like, they're seeing their health issues increase, their sugar levels increase, and it's medications, and that's all that they're doing. And so everything that we're going to do is absolutely going to lead to a better quality of life, better health. And as long as you have
Longer
a
life,
breath in your
probably.
lungs and you can actually have some level of choice of what you put in your body, as long as you're not in a hospital bed and being fed through a feeding tube and the doctors have control of you, then guess what? You can absolutely turn your life around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I've seen people, I had a woman that was like 50-some years old, and she's like, our testimony was like, back in the day was 50 and finally free. She was literally gone through lupus, RA, RA at 18 years old, so lived the majority of her life.
Yeah,
And
my mom
is completely healed from all of that stuff.
I mean, you guys, my mom has lupus, and she was misdiagnosed for years and years and years, had her gallbladder taken out, had all sorts of stuff. And when they finally figured out it was lupus, she changed over to a paleo-type diet, and she didn't have flare-ups anymore. She lost 80 pounds just from like lack of inflammation in her body, and she was able to run again. This woman was running marathons at 50, was diagnosed with lupus, couldn't run anymore, and is now hiking mountains. Like, you guys, it's never too late to take care of your health and yourself and figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. Like, don't let it get worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody just said there, she's like, you know, don't let cost basically get in the way. You know, and sometimes choosing to save the money and go the route of what your insurance pays for and those doctors and those drugs, ultimately pharma leads to the disability and greater, and disability doesn't pay much, and then you're stuck and you have no money and you have no health.
Oh, I would absolutely like save my pennies, you guys. Like.
And then Ashley, you'll get, I think there's a Nicole girl asking about like the cost of the tests and things like that. And like, you guys can call us, you can email us, we send the costs out. We are planning to do a cost overview online to actually start posting our costs for labs and different things like that. We hope you all are blessed by this information. Please do share the truth, share this information, because that's the way we're going to save lives.